Go on, join your real family.
The champagne flute hit the white tablecloth with a crystalline chime that somehow managed to sound like a funeral bell. 23 years of marriage, and my wife Lena chose our anniversary dinner at Romano's, the same restaurant where I'd proposed, to detonate our life like a hand grenade rolled under a church pew. "I'm not your property anymore, Nathan," she said, her voice steady as a surgeon's hand. The private dining room suddenly felt smaller, the burgundy walls closing in like a coffin. "I'm opening our marriage." I set down my fork, watching the veal marsala congeal on my plate. Opening it to what, exactly? That's when she turned in her chair and planted a kiss on my best friend, Eddie Morrison. Not a peck. A full, wet, tongue-dancing spectacle that lasted long enough for me to count the gray hairs creeping into my temples in the reflection of the wine bottle. Eddie, 6'2" of gym-sculpted charm in a $1,000 suit, had been sitting at the bar, nursing a whiskey, waiting like a vulture circling roadkill. "To possibilities," Lena whispered against his mouth, her manicured fingers trailing down his lapel. She stood, smoothing her black cocktail dress, the one I'd bought her for Christmas. "Eddie's taking me home tonight." They walked out together, leaving me with the check, the stares from the waitstaff, and the sound of my own heartbeat drumming against my eardrums, like rain on a tin roof. I paid the bill with steady hands, tipped 20% like always, and drove my 10-year-old Ford pickup through the empty streets of Millbrook. Our house, my house now, I supposed, sat dark against the October sky, the mortgage I'd been paying for 15 years, the gutters I'd cleaned last weekend, the driveway I'd sealed with my own hands every spring. Inside, I poured 3 fingers of bourbon and sat in my recliner, staring at the wedding photos on the mantel. Lena in white lace, radiant and young. Me in a rented tux, grinning like I'd won the lottery. Our daughter Jessica, now 19 and away at college, gap-toothed in family Christmas pictures. The front door rattled at 11:30. Lena's key scraped against the lock, but the deadbolt held firm. I'd changed it 20 minutes after walking through the door. "Nathan, open this door right now!" Her fist pounded against the wood. "This is my house, too!" I took another sip of bourbon and turned up the television. Let the neighbors hear. Let the whole entire street know that Lena Morrison, Lena Parker, she'd probably want her maiden name back, was locked out of her own home like a teenager who'd missed curfew. The pounding stopped after 10 minutes. Through the living room window, I watched Eddie's silver BMW pull away from the curb, taillights disappearing into the darkness like dying embers. My phone buzzed with text messages. Lena, of course. "You can't do this. I have rights. We need to talk like adults. You're being childish." I deleted each one without responding and poured another bourbon. The house felt different now. Lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted from the foundation. 23 years of walking on eggshells, of measuring my words, of being the reliable one while she found herself through yoga retreats and wine-tasting clubs and whatever other middle-aged woman nonsense she'd been exploring. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd built this life brick by brick, started Morrison Construction with nothing but a pickup truck and a toolbox, worked 16-hour days to afford this house, this neighborhood, the private school tuition for Jessica. Lena had married a nobody and helped herself to the somebody I'd become. Now she wanted to have her cake and eat it too. Keep the house, the lifestyle, the respectability of marriage, while screwing my best friend on the side. I'd given Eddie Morrison, no relation despite the shared name, the best man spot at our wedding. Loaned him money when his restaurant failed. Helped him move 3 times. Fixed his plumbing, his electrical, his car. 20 years of friendship. And he'd been planning this ambush, like D-Day. The bourbon was working its magic, smoothing the sharp edges of betrayal into something manageable. I had advantages they didn't know about. Lena thought she was married to a simple contractor, a blue-collar guy who'd roll over and accept whatever scraps she threw him. She had no idea what she'd just unleashed. My phone rang at midnight, Jessica's number. "Dad, Mom called me crying. She says you locked her out of the house. What's going on?" I closed my eyes, listening to my daughter's voice, so much like her mother's, but without the venom. "Your mother has decided she wants to explore other relationships while staying married to me. I've decided I'd rather not participate in that arrangement." Silence stretched across the phone line. Then, "She's having an affair?" "With Eddie Morrison. They made quite the public announcement tonight at Romano's." "Oh, Dad." Jessica's voice cracked. "I'm so sorry. Are you okay?" I'm fine, sweetheart. Better than fine, actually. Sometimes the trash takes itself out. Should I come home? I can drive up from school tomorrow. No need. Stay focused on your studies. This mess will sort itself out. After hanging up, I sat in the darkness and planned. Lena and Eddie thought they held all the cards: youth, beauty, passion, whatever story they were telling themselves, but they'd forgotten something important. I was a contractor. I knew how to tear things down and build them back up. I knew how to read blueprints, follow building codes, work within the system to get exactly what I wanted. And I knew how to make sure the foundation was solid before I started construction. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. The gossip mill in Millbrook ran faster than a greyhound with its backside on fire. By Tuesday morning, half the town knew about Lena's anniversary surprise. The other half would catch up by lunchtime. I discovered this at Murphy's Diner, where I'd been eating breakfast for 15 years. Normally, I'd grab coffee and eggs at the counter, exchange pleasantries about the weather or the Patriots, and head to whatever job site needed my attention. Today, conversations stopped when I walked in. Heads turned, whispers followed. "Nathan, honey," said Dolores Murphy, sliding a steaming mug across the counter without being asked. "How are you holding up?" "Never better, Dolores. Thanks for asking." She leaned closer, lowering her voice to funeral parlor levels. "That woman's got some nerve. I'll tell you that. In public, no less. My cousin's daughter works at Romano's, says she's never seen anything so shameless." I sipped my coffee and let her talk. Information was currency in a small town, and I was about to become very rich. "Eddie Morrison's been sniffing around other men's wives for years," continued Dolores, warming to her subject. "Remember when he tried to get handsy with Carol Peterson at the Founders' Day barbecue? Her husband nearly flattened him." This was news to me. Eddie had always played the charming bachelor, the guy who just couldn't find the right woman to settle down with. Apparently, he'd been finding plenty of wrong women instead. "Course, your Lena's not the first to fall for his act," Dolores added, refilling my cup. "That PR job of hers goes to her head sometimes. All those fancy clients and business lunches. Some women get a taste of the high life and forget where they come from." I nodded sympathetically, while mentally filing away every word. Lena's job at Hartwell and Associates was her pride and joy, the thing that made her feel important, successful, better than the contractor's wife she'd started as. Her clients included the mayor, the hospital board, half the city council. Her reputation was everything to her, which made it a perfect target. My phone buzzed with another text from Lena. "We need to talk. This is ridiculous." I deleted it and ordered the breakfast special. At 9 o'clock, I drove to my lawyer's office. Tom Bradley had handled my business contracts for years, knew every detail of my finances. He also happened to be married to Lena's former boss at the hospital, which meant he had his finger on the pulse of Millbrook's professional class. "Nathan," he said, shaking my hand with the firm grip of a man who'd played college football. "I heard about your situation. I'm sorry." "Don't be. I'm here to discuss divorce proceedings." Tom's eyebrows climbed toward his receding hairline. "That was fast. You sure you don't want to try counseling first? Sometimes these things can be worked out." "She kissed another man at our anniversary dinner, Tom, in front of half of Romano's waitstaff. I'm pretty sure we're past the counseling stage." He pulled out a legal pad and started taking notes. "Okay, let's talk assets. The house is in both names, but you've been making the mortgage payments. Your business is solely owned, joint checking and savings accounts. What about retirement funds?" "Everything's documented. I've got 15 years of tax returns, bank statements, business records. Lena's been spending money like water lately, spa treatments, shopping trips, that new Lexus she insisted on leasing. I've got receipts for all of it." "Good. What about custody? Jessica's 19, so that's not an issue. Any other children?" I paused, savoring the moment. "That's where it gets interesting. Lena's been telling people she might be pregnant." Tom's pen stopped moving. "Might be?" "She's been dropping hints for weeks, talking about morning sickness, making doctor's appointments, buying prenatal vitamins, very public about it all. And I had a vasectomy 12 years ago, right after Jessica was born. Lena was there for the procedure." Tom's face went through several expressions before settling on professional neutrality. "I see, and she's claiming the child is yours?" "She hasn't claimed anything directly, just lots of meaningful looks and comments about unexpected blessings and second chances at parenthood. Let people draw their own conclusions." "Jesus, Nathan. That's fraud. If she's trying to use a pregnancy to influence the divorce settlement, knowing the child isn't yours. Gets better. I had my doctor fax over the vasectomy records this morning, sealed and dated. Want to guess who performed the procedure? Who? Dr. Sarah Chen at Millbrook General. Same hospital where Lena used to work, same hospital where half her current clients serve on the board. Tom leaned back in his chair, whistling softly. You're playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. I learned from the best. 23 years of marriage teaches you a few things about strategy. We spent the next hour going over financial records, property deeds, and legal options. Tom would file the preliminary paperwork by Friday, citing irreconcilable differences and adultery. The vasectomy records would remain sealed unless Lena tried to claim pregnancy benefits in the settlement. One more thing, I said, standing to leave. I need you to do some research on Eddie Morrison. Business dealings, financial situation, any legal troubles. Quietly. Nathan, be careful. Don't do anything that could hurt your case. I'm not going to do anything illegal, Tom. I'm just going to make sure the truth comes to light. From the law office, I drove to the bank and transferred half our joint savings into a personal account. Perfectly legal. My name was on everything. Then I canceled the credit cards, closed the joint checking account, and removed Lena as a beneficiary on my life insurance. By noon, she'd be getting declined messages every time she tried to buy lunch. My phone rang as I was leaving the bank. Eddie Morrison. Nathan, we need to talk. I don't think we do, Eddie. Look, I know this is awkward, but we're all adults here. Lena and I, it just happened. We didn't plan it. I laughed, a sound like gravel in a cement mixer. You just happened to be sitting at the bar during our anniversary dinner? Just happened to have a reservation at the same restaurant? Just happened to be wearing your best suit? Okay, maybe we planned the conversation. But the feelings are real, Nathan. What Lena and I have, it's special. I'm sure it is. Tell me, Eddie, how long have you been having these special feelings? Weeks? Months? Silence on the other end. Then, it doesn't matter. The point is, we can handle this like civilized people. No lawyers, no drama, just a clean break. You're right about one thing. It's going to be clean, surgical even. I hung up and drove home to find Lena's car in the driveway. She was sitting on the front porch, looking small and vulnerable in her designer jeans and cashmere sweater. The wronged woman act. Nathan, please, we need to talk about this rationally. I walked past her to unlock the front door. Nothing to talk about. You made your choice. It's not that simple. There are things you don't understand. Like what? Like how you've been screwing my best friend behind my back? Like how you're telling people you might be pregnant with my child when we both know that's impossible? Like how you think you can have your cake and eat it too? Her face went pale. How did you know about the vasectomy? Lena, you drove me to the hospital. You held my hand during the consultation. You bought me ice packs for the recovery. That was 12 years ago. Sometimes these procedures fail. Sometimes lying hoes get caught in their own web of BS. She flinched like I'd slapped her. Good. The gloves were off now. You can't cut me off financially, she said, trying to regain her footing. I have rights. I'll call my lawyer. Go ahead. While you're at it, call your credit card companies. Call the bank. Call anyone you want. But you're not getting another dime from me until this is settled in court. You bastard. You can't do this to me. Watch me. I went inside and locked the door behind me, leaving her on the porch like a door-to-door salesman with a bad pitch. Through the window, I watched her pace back and forth, phone pressed to her ear, probably calling Eddie, probably crying about how mean I was being, how unreasonable, how she just wanted to work things out. Let her cry, let her beg, let her realize that actions have consequences, and some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. The real fun was just getting started. Wednesday morning brought the first casualty of Lena's new life, her credit rating. I knew this because she called me at 6 a.m., screaming about declined cards and frozen accounts. You vindictive son of a witch. I can't even buy coffee. Good morning to you too, sweetheart. How's that open marriage treating you? Fix this, Nathan. Fix it right now, or I'll make your life a nightmare. Too late. You already did that. The difference is now I'm returning the favor. I hung up and made my own coffee, savoring the silence of my house. No morning news blaring from the kitchen TV. No complaints about the neighbors, the weather, or whatever social slight had offended Lena's delicate sensibilities. Just peace, quiet, and the satisfying knowledge that somewhere across town, my wife was discovering what life looked like without my financial support. At 7, I called my old friend Marcus Webb. Marcus ran a private investigation firm out of Buffalo, specialized in divorce cases and insurance fraud. We'd served together in the National Guard 20 years ago, stayed in touch through Christmas cards and the occasional beer when he was in town. Nathan Morrison, you son of a witch. How's the construction business? Booming. Listen, Marcus, I need a favor. Professional consultation on a personal matter. Your wife's screwing around. It wasn't a question. Marcus had always been sharp, could read people like a blueprint. Among other things, I need background checks on 2 people. Financial records, criminal history, employment verification, the works. This is going to cost you. Money's no object. I want to know everything. Where they eat, where they shop, who they owe money to, what skeletons are rattling around in their closets. Send me the names and addresses. I'll have preliminary reports by Friday. Next, I called Jessica at college. She answered on the 3rd ring, sounding groggy. Dad? It's 7 in the morning. Sorry, sweetheart. I wanted to catch you before classes. How are you doing? Worried about you and confused. Mom called me last night crying about money problems and credit cards. She says you're being cruel and vindictive. What do you think? A long pause. I think if Mom wanted to stay married, she shouldn't have kissed Uncle Eddie in public. Uncle Eddie. That's what Jessica had called him growing up. The family friend who never missed a birthday, who taught her to throw a curveball, who'd been like a second father when I was working long hours to build the business. I'm proud of you, Jess, for seeing through the manipulation. It's pretty obvious, Dad. Mom's trying to make herself the victim here, but she's the one who cheated. She's the one who humiliated you in front of the whole town. Smart girl. Listen, things might get ugly over the next few weeks. Your mother's going to try to use you as a tool against me. Don't let her. I won't. I love you, Dad. Love you too, kiddo. By Thursday, the gossip network had expanded beyond Millbrook's borders. Lena's colleagues at Hartwell and Associates were whispering in conference rooms. Her clients were asking uncomfortable questions about her personal life. Her reputation, so carefully cultivated over 15 years, was developing cracks like a foundation built on sand. I knew this because Tom Bradley's wife had lunch with the hospital administrator, who'd heard from the mayor's secretary, who'd gotten the story from her hairdresser, who happened to be married to Romano's head waiter. Small towns were beautiful things when they worked in your favor. Friday afternoon, Marcus called with his preliminary report. Your boy Eddie's got some interesting financial arrangements, he said without preamble. 3 credit cards maxed out, 2 months behind on his rent, owes the IRS 40 grand in back taxes. Interesting. What's he been spending money on? Gambling, mostly. Atlantic City, underground poker games, sports betting. Guy's got a serious problem. Also found some connections to a loan shark operation out of Buffalo. Nothing criminal on his record, but he's been borrowing from some very unfriendly people. How unfriendly? The kind who break kneecaps when payments are late. Your boy's in deep, Nathan. Probably sees your wife as a meal ticket. The pieces were falling into place like dominoes in a windstorm. Eddie wasn't having a midlife crisis or a romantic awakening. He was desperate, broke, and looking for someone to solve his problems. Lena, with her successful career and contractor husband's assets, must have looked like a lottery ticket. What about Lena? Clean record, but some interesting spending patterns. A lot of cash withdrawals over the past 6 months. Always in round numbers, 500, 1,000. Could be she's been funding Eddie's habits without realizing it. Or she knew exactly what she was doing. Either way, she's been bleeding money. Also found something else you might find interesting. She's been seeing a therapist. Dr. Amanda Foster specializes in marriage counseling and dependency issues. Dependency? Could be gambling, could be something else. Want me to dig deeper? Do it. And Marcus, I need you to do something else. I want you to make sure certain people know about Eddie's financial situation. Discreetly. What people? The kind who don't like lending money to deadbeats. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Nathan, that's dangerous territory. These aren't the kind of guys who send collection letters. I'm not asking you to contact them directly. Just make sure the information finds its way into the right hands. Let nature take its course. You're playing with fire here. Eddie Morrison destroyed my marriage and humiliated me in front of the entire town. He can deal with the consequences of his own choices. That evening, I drove to O'Malley's pub, a working-class bar where I'd been drinking with the same group of guys for 10 years. Construction workers, electricians, plumbers, men who understood the value of loyalty and the price of betrayal. They were waiting for me at our usual table: Mike Santos, Jerry Palmer, Dave Kowalski, and Bobby Chen. 4 guys who'd helped me build half the houses in Millbrook, who'd been groomsmen at my wedding, who'd watched Jessica grow up from a toddler to a college freshman. "Nathan," said Mike, raising his beer in a mock toast, "how's the bachelor life treating you?" "Can't complain. Nobody's telling me to take out the trash or asking why I'm watching sports instead of some romantic comedy." "Heard Lena's been having some financial difficulties," said Jerry, his voice carefully neutral. "Amazing how expensive life gets when you're not married to a contractor." "Also heard Eddie Morrison's been making himself scarce around town," added Dave. "Usually see him at the country club every Friday. Past couple weeks, nothing. Maybe he's busy. New relationship and all." Bobby Chen leaned forward, lowering his voice. "My cousin works security at the casino in Buffalo. Says Eddie's been banned from the poker room. Caught cheating last month." This was news to me, but I kept my expression neutral. "Cheating how? Marked cards? Collusion with dealers? Amateur hour stuff?" "Word is he owes money to some very serious people." "How serious?" "The kind who collect debts with baseball bats." We drank in comfortable silence, 4 middle-aged men contemplating the wreckage of friendship and marriage. These guys had known Eddie almost as long as I had. They'd worked on his house, fixed his car, loaned him tools and money and whatever else he needed. His betrayal cut them almost as deeply as it cut me. "You know," said Mike, finishing his beer, "it's funny how things work out sometimes. Guy thinks he's found an easy mark, a way out of his problems. Doesn't realize he's just trading one set of troubles for another." "How's that?" "Well, say you're a deadbeat who owes money to dangerous people. You think hooking up with a married woman is going to solve your problems, but then her husband cuts off the money supply, and suddenly you're worse off than before. Now you've got the same debts, plus a pissed-off woman who expected you to take care of her." "That would be ironic," I agreed. "Of course, if word got back to the wrong people about where you've been spending your time instead of paying your debts." Mike shrugged. "Well, let's just say some folks don't have much patience for that kind of behavior." I bought the next round and listened to my friends dissect Eddie's situation with the clinical precision of surgeons. By the time I left O'Malley's, several phone calls had been made. Information had been shared. The wheels of small-town justice were beginning to turn. Saturday morning, I woke to the sound of my doorbell ringing like a fire alarm. Through the peephole, I saw Lena standing on my porch, mascara streaked down her cheeks, hair disheveled, looking like she'd slept in her car. "Nathan, please, I need to talk to you." I opened the door but didn't invite her in. "You look awful." "Eddie's gone. He left town yesterday, packed up his apartment, and disappeared. Maybe he went on vacation. His landlord says 3 men came looking for him Thursday night. Big men in expensive suits. They weren't happy when they found out he'd skipped town." I leaned against the doorframe, studying my wife's face. Fear had replaced arrogance. Desperation had replaced entitlement. Sounds like Eddie had some business to take care of. "Nathan, I think I made a terrible mistake." "You think? Can we try to work this out? Go to counseling, maybe? Start over?" "Start over?" I laughed, the sound harsh in the morning air. "Lena, you humiliated me in public, stole money from our joint accounts to fund your boyfriend's gambling debts, and lied to half the town about being pregnant with my child. What exactly would we be starting over from?" Her face crumpled. "I never meant for it to go this far. Eddie said you'd understand, that we could all be mature about this." "Eddie said a lot of things, most of them lies." "I know that now. But Nathan, we had 23 good years. Doesn't that count for something?" "It did, right up until you decided to throw it all away for a 2-bit con man with a gambling problem. Please, I'll do anything. I'll cut off all contact with Eddie. I'll quit my job if you want. I'll sign a prenup, give up any claim to your business. Just please. Can we try to save our marriage?" For a moment, looking at her tear-stained face, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost remembered the young woman I'd fallen in love with, the mother who'd raised our daughter, the partner who'd stood beside me through 20 years of building a life together. Then I remembered the kiss at Romano's, the public humiliation, the lies about pregnancy, the money stolen from our accounts. "No," I said simply. "We can't." I closed the door and walked back to my kitchen, leaving her sobbing on the porch. Through the window, I watched her collapse into her car, shoulders shaking with grief and regret. Too little, too late. The game was far from over. Monday morning brought news that Eddie Morrison hadn't just left town. He'd fled like a man with a pack of wolves on his trail. His apartment was cleaned out, his car was gone, and according to Bobby Chen's cousin at the casino, 3 very unhappy gentlemen from Buffalo had spent the weekend asking questions about his whereabouts. I learned this at Murphy's Diner, where the breakfast crowd was buzzing with speculation about Eddie's sudden departure. "Heard he owed money to some bad people," said Frank Muller, a retired cop who still had connections throughout the county. "The kind who don't take IOUs. "Good riddance," muttered Dolores Murphy, refilling coffee cups with aggressive precision. "Man who'd break up a marriage like that deserves whatever he gets." I nodded sympathetically while internally calculating the timeline. Eddie had disappeared Friday evening, roughly 12 hours after Marcus Webb's information had found its way to the right ears. The loan sharks had moved fast, probably faster than Eddie had expected. My phone buzzed with a text from Lena. "Eddie's missing. I'm scared. Can we please talk?" I deleted it without responding and ordered the breakfast special. At 9 o'clock, I met with Tom Bradley to review the divorce proceedings. The preliminary papers had been filed, and Lena had 30 days to respond. Her lawyer, a sharp young woman named Patricia Wells, had already called asking about settlement negotiations. "She wants to meet," Tom said, spreading documents across his desk. "Informal discussion, see if we can work something out without going to trial." "What's she offering?" 50-50 split of assets, including the house and your business. Alimony payments for 5 years. She keeps her car, you keep your truck. She's also claiming emotional distress damages. I laughed, a sound like a saw hitting a nail. Emotional distress? She's the one who cheated? Her lawyer's claiming you've been financially controlling, cutting off her access to money and credit cards. They quote, repainting you as a controlling husband who drove his wife into another man's arms. Let them try. We've got documentation of every penny she spent, including the cash withdrawals that went straight to Eddie's gambling debts, plus the vasectomy records if she tries to claim pregnancy. About that, Tom said, pulling out a manila folder. I did some digging into Eddie Morrison's background, like you asked. This guy was in deeper trouble than we thought. He spread out a collection of documents, credit reports, court filings, police reports. Eddie's financial life was a disaster zone of maxed out cards, bounced checks, and unpaid debts. He owes money to at least 3 different loan sharks, Tom continued, plus the IRS, his landlord, his bookie, and a half-dozen credit card companies. Total debt load is probably close to $200,000. Jesus, how was he making minimum payments? He wasn't. Look at this. Tom showed me a series of bank statements going back 6 months. Regular deposits, always in round numbers, always in cash. The amounts matched Lena's cash withdrawals almost perfectly. She was funding his entire lifestyle, I said. Gets better. I found records of a joint bank account they opened 3 weeks ago. She deposited $15,000, money she took from your business account without authorization. The betrayal cut deeper than I'd expected. $15,000 was a month's worth of payroll for my crew, money that should have gone to the men who'd worked for me, trusted me, counted on me to take care of their families. That's embezzlement, I said. Technically, it's theft. She had access to the account, but no authority to transfer funds to a third party. We could file criminal charges. Not yet. Let's see how desperate she gets first. That afternoon, I drove to the job site where my crew was installing hardwood floors in a new McMansion. Mike Santos met me at the door, his expression grim. We need to talk, boss. We walked outside, away from the other workers. Mike pulled out his phone and showed me a series of text messages. Got these last night from Lena. The messages were a masterpiece of manipulation. Mike, I'm sure Nathan's told you his side of the story, but there's more you don't know. He's been controlling and manipulative for years. I finally found the courage to leave, and now he's trying to destroy me financially. I know you're loyal to Nathan, but please consider that there might be another side to this story. If you really care about him, you'll encourage him to get help for his anger issues before someone gets hurt. I scrolled through a dozen similar messages, each one carefully crafted to plant seeds of doubt about my character and mental stability. She sent these to all of us, Mike said. Jerry, Dave, Bobby, even some of the part-time guys, trying to turn your own crew against you. What did you tell her? Nothing. But Nathan, this is getting ugly. She's desperate, and desperate people do stupid things. Like what? Like maybe calling OSHA about safety violations on our job sites. Like maybe reporting us to the IRS for paying workers under the table. Like maybe filing a restraining order claiming you threatened her. I hadn't considered that Lena might turn the legal system against me. It was a smart move, and exactly the kind of thing a PR executive would think of. Thanks for the heads up. Forward me those messages, and don't respond to any more of them. You got it, boss. But watch your back. This woman's playing for keeps. That evening, I was replacing a leaky faucet in my kitchen when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw a young woman in a business suit holding a clipboard. Mr. Morrison? I'm Deputy Sarah Collins with the Sheriff's Department. I need to serve you with some papers. I opened the door and accepted the envelope. Inside was a temporary restraining order, signed by Judge Patricia Hendricks, ordering me to stay at least 500 feet away from Lena Morrison and to cease all contact, direct or indirect. The petition claimed I had threatened her with physical violence, followed her to work, and engaged in a pattern of stalking and harassment. All lies, but lies backed by official court documents. Sir, do you understand the terms of this order? Asked Deputy Collins. I understand that my wife is a lying witch who's trying to manipulate the legal system. Sir, I need you to acknowledge that you understand the restrictions placed on you by this order. I understand. Violation of this order is a criminal offense punishable by up to 6 months in jail. Do you have any questions? Just one. How does this work if we live in the same house? According to the petition, your wife has been staying elsewhere due to your threatening behavior. The order prohibits you from going to her workplace or any location where she might reasonably be expected to be. After the deputy left, I called Tom Bradley's emergency number. She filed a restraining order, I said without preamble. On what grounds? Claims I threatened her, followed her to work, engaged in stalking behavior. All BS, but it's official now. This is actually good news for us. False accusations in a restraining order petition can be used to demonstrate her willingness to lie under oath. Do you have any witnesses who can testify about your whereabouts during the time she claims you were stalking her? Dozens. I've been working job sites with my crew every day. Plus, I've got receipts, time cards, GPS records for my truck. Perfect. We'll fight this in court and use it to undermine her credibility in the divorce proceedings. In the meantime, follow the order to the letter. Don't give her any ammunition. I spent the rest of the evening documenting my activities for the past 2 weeks. Job sites, meetings, phone calls, even trips to the grocery store. Every movement accounted for, every alibi airtight. Lena was playing a dangerous game, but she'd made a crucial mistake. She was fighting like a civilian, all emotion and desperation, no strategy or patience. I was fighting like a soldier, and soldiers knew how to win wars. Tuesday morning brought another surprise, a visit from Detective Ray Morrison, no relation, despite the name, who'd been investigating reports of harassment and stalking. Mr. Morrison, I need to ask you a few questions about your relationship with your estranged wife. Ask away, but I should probably call my lawyer. That's your right. This is just a preliminary investigation based on the restraining order petition. Has there been any contact between you and Mrs. Morrison since the order was served? None. I haven't called, texted, emailed, or gone anywhere near her. What about indirect contact? Messages through friends or family members? Nothing. I've been following the order to the letter. Detective Morrison made notes in a small pad, his expression neutral. Mrs. Morrison claims you've been driving past her workplace, sitting in your truck across the street from her office building. When? Yesterday afternoon, around 3 o'clock. I pulled out my phone and showed him the photos I'd taken at the job site. I was installing kitchen cabinets in a house on Elm Street, 40 miles from her office. I've got 6 witnesses, including the homeowner. What about Monday morning? She says you followed her to the coffee shop on Main Street. Monday morning, I was at Murphy's Diner having breakfast. Same as every Monday for the past 15 years. Dolores Murphy can confirm it. The detective's expression shifted slightly. Mr. Morrison, do you own a silver pickup truck? I own a blue Ford F-150. 10 years old, dent in the rear bumper, Morrison Construction logo on the doors. Mrs. Morrison described a silver truck following her, license plate starting with the letters GM. Mine starts with BF. Want to see my registration? Detective Morrison closed his notebook. That won't be necessary. Mr. Morrison, I have to ask, do you know of anyone who might want to harass or intimidate your wife? The question caught me off guard. What do you mean? She's reported several incidents over the past week. Strange phone calls, someone going through her garbage, a man watching her apartment from across the street. She assumed it was you, but if you have solid alibis... I don't know anything about that. But, Detective, my wife has been under a lot of stress lately. Her boyfriend disappeared. She's facing divorce proceedings. Her finances are a mess. Maybe she's seeing things that aren't there. Maybe. But I have to investigate all reports of stalking and harassment. If you think of anything that might be relevant, give me a call. After he left, I sat in my kitchen thinking about silver pickup trucks and mysterious watchers. Lena was being harassed by someone, but it wasn't me, which meant someone else had taken an interest in her activities, someone who might be looking for Eddie Morrison, someone who thought she might know where he'd gone. I poured a cup of coffee and smiled. The game was getting more interesting by the day. The phone call came at 2 a.m, jerking me from the first decent sleep I'd had in weeks. Jessica's number on the caller ID. Dad, something's wrong with Mom. I sat up, instantly alert. What happened? She called me crying, barely coherent. She's scared, Dad. Really scared. She says someone's been following her, watching her apartment. She thinks they're going to hurt her. Where is she now? Some motel on Route 9. The Sleepy Inn, I think. Dad, she sounded broken, like she's having a nervous breakdown. I looked at the clock. 2:17 a.m. Jess, I can't go to her. There's a restraining order. If I show up, I'll be arrested. Then what do? I'm 3 hours away and she's falling apart. Call emergency. Tell them your mother is having a mental health crisis and needs immediate assistance. They'll send someone to check on her. Are you sure? I'm sure. And Jessica, stay at school. Don't drive up here in the middle of the night. This situation is more dangerous than you realize. After hanging up, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. Lena was reaping what she'd sown, but I felt no satisfaction in her terror. Whatever was happening to her, it had gone beyond my carefully orchestrated revenge. The next morning brought answers in the form of a phone call from Marcus Webb. Your boy Eddie's been found, he said without preamble. Dead or alive? Alive, but wishing he wasn't. Someone worked him over pretty good before dumping him in a Buffalo hospital. Broken ribs, dislocated shoulder, face like hamburger. Did he talk? Sang like a canary. Gave up everything, where he'd been hiding, who helped him, where he stashed what little money he had left, including details about his relationship with your wife. And turns out Eddie told these guys that Lena was his business partner, not just his girlfriend. Claimed she was helping him launder money through her PR firm, that she had access to client accounts and city contracts. That's BS. Lena's many things, but she's not a criminal. You and I know that, but these guys don't. They think she's sitting on a pile of their money, and they want it back. The pieces clicked into place like a puzzle solving itself. The silver pickup truck, the watchers outside her apartment, the phone calls and garbage searches. How long before they realize she doesn't have their money? Hard to say. Could be days, could be weeks. Depends on how desperate they are and how much Eddie convinced them she was involved. Jesus Christ, Marcus, I need you to do something for me. Name it. I need documentation of Eddie's claims about Lena. Recorded statements, witness testimony, whatever you can get, and I need it fast. Why? Because I'm about to save my wife's life, and I need leverage to do it. I spent the morning making phone calls and arrangements. By noon, I had what I needed. A meeting with Detective Morrison, a conference call with Tom Bradley, and a plan that would either save Lena or destroy us both. The detective met me at the police station, his expression skeptical. Mr. Morrison, you said this was urgent. What's this about? I laid out everything. Eddie's gambling debts, the loan sharks, his false claims about Lena's involvement in money laundering, the harassment she'd been experiencing. I know there's a restraining order against me, I said, but my wife is in genuine danger from people who think she has their money. She doesn't, but they won't believe that until someone they trust tells them so. And you want to be that someone. I want to arrange a meeting, neutral location, police presence, everything recorded and documented. I'll explain the situation, show them the financial records proving Lena wasn't involved in Eddie's schemes, and negotiate her safety. Detective Morrison leaned back in his chair. Mr. Morrison, what you're describing sounds like a sting operation. We don't use civilians for that kind of work. Then what do you suggest? Wait until they decide she's lying and escalate their methods. We could put her in protective custody. For how long? These guys aren't going away until they get their money or find out where it really went. The detective was quiet for a long moment. Then, what exactly are you proposing? Set up a meeting. I'll go in wired with backup nearby. I'll explain that Lena and I are divorcing, that she had no knowledge of Eddie's debts or criminal activities, and that any money she gave him came from our joint accounts. Money that's already been spent on his gambling. And if they don't believe you, then you arrest them for extortion and harassment, and Lena goes into witness protection until trial. This is insane. Why would you risk your life for a woman who cheated on you? I thought about that for a moment. Because she's the mother of my daughter. Because 23 years of marriage means something, even if it's ending badly. And because I'm not the kind of man who lets innocent people get hurt, even when they've hurt me. It took 3 hours of negotiation, but Detective Morrison finally agreed to the plan. The meeting would take place that evening at a warehouse in the industrial district. I'd wear a wire with police backup positioned outside. If things went wrong, they'd move in fast. At 6 o'clock, I drove to the warehouse in my pickup truck, my hands steady on the wheel despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. The wire felt strange against my chest, a constant reminder of how far this situation had spiraled beyond my original plans for revenge. The warehouse was exactly what you'd expect from a low-budget crime movie. Concrete floors, broken windows, shadows that seemed to move when you weren't looking directly at them. 2 men were waiting for me. Big guys in expensive suits, the kind of muscle that looked like it bench-pressed Buicks for fun. "You Morrison?" asked the taller one. "That's me. You guys want to talk about Eddie and the money situation?" "We want to talk about your wife. She's been avoiding our calls." "That's because she doesn't have what you're looking for." The shorter man stepped closer, his breath smelling of cigarettes and menthol. "Eddie says different. Says she's been his partner for months, helping him move money through her business." "Eddie's a liar, always has been. Let me show you something." I pulled out a folder containing bank statements, financial records, and Eddie's gambling receipts. "This is where your money went. Atlantic City, underground poker games, sports betting. Eddie burned through $200,000 in 6 months, and every penny came from legitimate sources." The tall man studied the documents, his expression unreadable. "How do we know these aren't fake?" "Because I'm the one who tracked every transaction. My wife was giving Eddie money, but she thought it was for business investments. She had no idea about the gambling or the debts to you guys. She gave him 15 grand 3 weeks ago. That's our money. That's my money, from our joint business account. She stole it without my knowledge, which is why we're getting divorced." The shorter man laughed, a sound like gravel in a blender. "So you're telling us your wife screwed you over too?" "In more ways than one. Look, I understand you guys have a business to run, but Lena doesn't have your money and she can't get it for you. Eddie spent everything on cards and horses and whatever other stupid bets he made." "Then how do we get paid?" "You don't. Eddie's broke. I'm not responsible for his debts, and my wife is just another victim of his con game." The tall man folded the papers and handed them back to me. "Mr. Morrison, you seem like a reasonable guy, but we can't just write off 200 grand because your buddy was a degenerate gambler." "What are you suggesting?" "We're suggesting your wife needs to find a way to make this right. Maybe she takes out a loan against her house. Maybe she liquidates some assets. Maybe she gets creative. And if she can't," the shorter man smiled, showing teeth that had seen better decades, "then she learns what happens to people who cost us money." That's when I played my final card. "Gentlemen, I need to tell you something. This conversation is being recorded by the Millbrook Police Department. There are 6 officers positioned outside this warehouse, and Detective Ray Morrison has heard every word you've said in the last 10 minutes. Their faces went through a series of expressions: surprise, anger, and finally grudging respect. "You son of a witch," said the tall man. "You set us up. I protected my family. There's a difference." The warehouse doors burst open, and police officers flooded in with tools drawn. The 2 men raised their hands without resistance, professionals who knew when the game was over. "Nathan Morrison, you're either the bravest man I've ever met or the stupidest," said Detective Morrison as the suspects were led away in handcuffs. "Probably both. Is Lena safe now?" "She will be once we round up the rest of their operation. Eddie gave us enough information to roll up the entire network." "And Eddie?" "He'll recover. Probably do some time for fraud and money laundering, but he'll live. More than he deserved, considering." I drove home through the dark streets of Millbrook, feeling like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. The revenge I'd planned had spiraled into something far more dangerous than I'd intended, but it was over now. Lena was safe, Eddie was facing justice, and the loan sharks were behind bars. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Thank you." L. I deleted it without responding and pulled into my driveway. The house was dark and quiet, exactly the way I liked it now. 3 weeks later, I sat in Tom Bradley's office signing the final divorce papers. Lena had agreed to a settlement that gave me the house, the business, and most of our assets in exchange for a modest alimony payment. She'd also agreed to enter counseling and pay restitution for the money she'd stolen from my business account. "She's moving to Florida," Tom said, sliding the papers across his desk. "Fresh start, new job, away from all the gossip and drama. Good for her. You know, Nathan, a lot of men would have let those guys work her over, would have said she deserved whatever she got. A lot of men aren't fathers. Lena's still Jessica's mother, and my daughter doesn't deserve to lose a parent because of my need for revenge. Speaking of Jessica, she called this morning. She's transferring to a school in Florida to be closer to her mother, says Lena needs support right now." I nodded, unsurprised. Jessica was a good kid with a big heart. She'd forgive her mother's mistakes and try to help her rebuild her life. It's what I'd raised her to do. "What about you?" Tom asked. "Any plans for the future?" "I'm thinking about expanding the business, maybe taking on some commercial projects, hiring more crew. There's a lot of opportunity in this town for someone willing to work hard." "And personally?" "Personally, I'm done with marriage, done with drama, done with people who think they can use me and throw me away when something better comes along." I walked out of the lawyer's office a free man for the first time in 23 years. The sun was shining, my business was thriving, and my enemies were either in jail, in exile, or facing the consequences of their own poor choices. That evening, I sat on my back porch with a beer and my phone, scrolling through the messages that had accumulated over the past month. Condolences from friends, business inquiries from potential clients, and one message that caught my attention. It was from Marcus Webb. "Heard about the warehouse showdown. Impressive work. If you ever want to change careers, I could use a partner with your skills." I smiled and typed back, "Thanks, but I'm happy building things instead of tearing them down," which wasn't entirely true. I discovered I had a talent for destruction, for taking apart the lives of people who crossed me with the same precision I used to frame a house or wire electrical systems. It was a dangerous skill, one that could easily become obsession. But I was a builder by nature, not a destroyer. I'd torn down my marriage, my friendship with Eddie, and Lena's carefully constructed life because they'd forced me to. Now it was time to build something new, something better, something that belonged entirely to me. I finished my beer and went inside to plan tomorrow's work. There were houses to build, crews to manage, and a business to grow. The past was behind me, and the future stretched ahead like a blueprint waiting to be brought to life. For the first time in months, I slept peacefully through the night. 6 months later, Jessica graduated from college with honors and announced she was moving back to Millbrook to help run Morrison Construction. Lena had found stability in Florida, working for a small PR firm and attending AA meetings twice a week. Eddie was serving 18 months in federal prison for fraud and would be deported to Canada upon release. The loan sharks had been sentenced to 5 years each for extortion and racketeering. Their operation was shut down, their assets seized, and their victims finally free from the cycle of debt and intimidation. I stood in the driveway of my latest project, a custom home for a young family with 2 small children, watching my crew install the final pieces of trim work. Jessica was beside me, studying the blueprints and asking intelligent questions about load-bearing walls and electrical systems. "Dad," she said, "I'm proud of how you handled everything with Mom and Eddie. You could have let those guys hurt her, but you didn't. Your mother made mistakes, but she didn't deserve to be terrorized by criminals. Besides, revenge is like a controlled demolition. You have to be precise about what you're tearing down, or you end up destroying things you want to keep." Like family? Like family. We watched the sun set over Millbrook, father and daughter planning the future of Morrison Construction. The house behind us was nearly complete, another family's dream taking shape through careful planning, skilled labor, and attention to detail. It was good work, honest work, the kind of work that built communities instead of tearing them apart. And for the first time since that disastrous anniversary dinner, I was genuinely happy.